Hi there, I'm Dr. Julia Spinolo, and welcome to Medical Girl Mystical World, where health is not just about medicine. Today, my guest is Miki Brittenham. She's an energy healer and an animal communicator, and she has an incredible story of near-death experience. So, welcome, Miki.
Hi.
I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Your experience, I've heard your story, and what I found so fascinating by it was that you have so much detail of what happened to you. And now this happened about 25 years ago, right?
Yes.
And let's just go ahead and start talking about it.
Okay. I was in the hospital when I was pregnant with my daughter. I had something called HELP syndrome. HELP syndrome is hemolysis elevated enzyme liver platelet disease. So it's like the most severe form of preeclampsia.
Right. And back then, they didn't have as much medical intervention as they do now. So it was like a dire emergency medical procedure.
You basically would die if you had that.
Right.
So now that doesn't happen.
Right.
But I had been in the hospital probably a total of about 4 to 5 months for before and after. But on the day that they were trying to keep the baby in for as long as they could.
Sure.
So the day that she made 33 weeks was the day. So they started to induce me, but the baby was so small, it wasn't really progressing. So they decided that my health was dropping drastically, and they wanted to make sure that at least the baby was going to live. So they did a crash cesarean super fast.
Right.
When they wheeled me in, from the time the baby was born, from the time they took me in, it took 4 minutes. It was so fast.
Wow.
As soon as they put me under, I left my body and I watched everything from above. So I stayed there to watch the baby, but it wasn't like I was really attached to the baby. It was more of this outside view of, I just want to make sure that baby is okay.
Right.
And then I'm out of here.
Right.
And as soon as she was fine, then I floated up out of the ceiling, I guess. It was like watching just sort of everything.
Like being on an elevator.
Perspective, yeah. And I was outside, and I saw my mom had been outside on those outside patios, and I saw her, and I felt the same kind of way about her as I did about the baby, and my body was like, oh, it's my mom, but there was no attachment. So then I didn't see, everyone says that you see a light or you go through a tower. It wasn't that way for me. I was here and seeing these things, and then all of a sudden I was somewhere else. So it was just like this instant. And there were 3 beings there. One was an older man, it seemed. He had a long white hair, long beard, really blue eyes. Then there was a younger man with sort of kind of wavy-ish, light brownish hair, and he kind of had purple eyes. And then there was a woman who had really long hair, all really long, that was like a white or white blonde, and she kind of had purpley eyes, and her skin was sort of had a blue tinge to it.
Now, did these people look familiar from anybody in your lifetime?
No, they weren't people that I know, but I knew who they were.
Okay.
And I can see what they looked like, but they didn't have a face like you or me, or, they were more just, like an essence of an energy that you could feel, but I could also sort of see into their, what their features were. They were wearing what seemed like, I struggle with this because I want to say it's like a robe, that with gold stitching, and there were some kind of cuffs, but that just seems so, I don't know, like cliche or weird, right?
Yeah.
You know? But, you know, it's not like I saw these things, but my mind sees these things. So that's kind of how I remember it.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing them was like, when the best thing that I can say is, you know, when you get off of an airplane and people that you really love, it was like that.
Yeah.
So it was like I knew them, but I didn't know them when I was alive.
Gotcha.
And it was like this grand, you know, reuniting. We had virtual hugs almost. Being with them was like every love that you've ever had combined into one. When I first was with them, and it was just this, you know, we loved each other so much. I felt so much love from them. Like it was just so amazing. It was sort of like I could see this beautiful place in a distance from where I was. Sometimes I joke and say there was like a fence, like, you know, or like a gate. I'm on this side of heaven and there's heaven and I want to get over there,
right?
You know, but we're over on this side. And there wasn't a fence or a gate or anything, but I had the impression that like I'm on this side. I'm not going over there, or not yet. I might. But I remember looking across there and I really wanted to be there. It was so beautiful. It was almost like that pinky sunset blue, you know, when the clouds sort of have that very pale pinkish orange hue. It was like that. But it wasn't like there were clouds. It was just like this color that was really smooth. And there was a field of some kind and a river. And the river was so like bluish turquoise clear, like the clearest water. And it was just so gorgeous. But at that point, and I was looking out there thinking about going there, you know, or like where am I? Or I mean, it wasn't really where am I, because I recognized it at the time. I knew where I was. But then, you know, they looked at me. There was no talking, but there was a lot of communication. It was all telepathic. And then I went into like a life review. The life review reminded me of a bunch of pictures on a screen where they're moving, and it was sort of like this panoramic thing where I watched all the parts of my life in these different little almost flashes. Looking at those parts, this is where it gets hard.
It's okay, take a breath.
So, looking at those parts of my life, and the reason why it's so emotional is because it would be like if I was watching this moment, I would be seeing it from your perspective. You know, I'm feeling what you're feeling about this interaction, along with my own interaction. So in each of these visions, I saw and felt everyone's feelings who was involved in that moment.
Wow.
So you get, not only is it this round perspective this way, it's a complete perspective of every interaction that you've ever had. So you really there's so much that you can learn, and the impact that you feel really gives you a different meaning on every interaction, you know? So through that, you know, there were certain things in my life that I think I kind of had a volatile upbringing in some ways. So my behavior and the way that I've reacted to things wasn't always great, you know? So it really changed how I react to situations, or I try to. I mean, of course, there are times where you sort of slip back into things that you don't want to do, but
well, we're humans.
Right, yeah,
so, I mean,
everyone does that. But, you know, so it was so fast, and you're thinking, okay, it's like 25 years, you know, to see everything in your life. But there's no sense of time, although it felt like it moved so fast because it was like one on top of the other. And however I was able to experience each moment without a break, it was just like this, you know, moment. And then after that was when I needed to make a choice. They said, well, they didn't say, but that I needed to make a choice, that I could stay or I could leave. And at that point, I feel like everyone in that situation wants to stay.
Because it was so beautiful, and you felt wonderful and at
peace. It's the best feeling in the world.
Right.
You know, I mean, I've never felt anything like it besides that. So, you know, it's hard to make that decision.
Sure.
You know, they showed me a chest, and the chest was like big, like this big chest that had a domed top, and it was gold and had like this piping almost on it. And I don't really remember what was in the chest, but I looked in the chest, and it was like this great revelation where I was like, yes, okay. It almost had a feeling, and I'm not a sports person, so I can only imagine that this is what it's like, where you're on the sidelines of a game and the coach is like, all right, you go.
Yeah.
Do you want to go on the field? And you're like, yes, like this is what I've trained for all this time, right? So you go and get right in the game, even if it's crap,
right?
You know? That's what it was like looking in the chest.
So was the chest going towards heaven or staying in your life?
Staying in my life.
Gotcha.
The chest, I've struggled, like, what was in the chest? Because that's the part that I really can't remember.
Right.
So what I've, you know, over the years looking at this, the chest showed me what I could have. You know?
Yeah.
Like, behind curtain 1, you get this, you know, or you can have this, right? So kind of a choice. And it was really that. I was like, the box, I'm going to choose the box. Like, yes, I'm all in, you know? And at that moment, when I was excited for this, then my uncle, who had passed away when he was young, he showed up, and he made the shaka, which is, you know, like right on in Hawaii. He was like perps, which that was his word for describing really big waves. Like the perfect wave was perps. So in that moment, you know, and it, like I said, you want to be there so bad, right? Because it's the best feeling ever. And I don't know, I mean,
because you don't remember making like a conscious choice, right? To go back. You were just like, all of a sudden you're like excited to go back.
Yeah. And then there was, you know, what my uncle said. And, you know, I'm sure whenever you make a choice of any kind, there's always like,
Yeah.
is that the right choice, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure there was that moment that, probably not. I probably knew exactly what I wanted, but I feel like there's that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And my uncle really solidified it for
Mm-hmm.
me. He was like, yes, that was the right choice, right? Yeah. So then, and then I woke up and I had a 24-hour nurse with me who didn't work at the hospital. And his name was Scott. And he was by my bed in intensive care, holding my hand every day, all day. Whenever I would wake up, he was there. And when I'd ask for him, they were like, there's no one who works here. I'm like, this is what he looks like. And I'd describe him and they'd be like, no.
So who do you think Scott was?
Probably one of my guides or just making sure I was okay,
How long did you stay in the hospital then?
Afterwards, probably about 3 weeks or so. My daughter was a month and a half, I think, in the ICU.
Yeah.
She was 3 pounds.
So tell me how, after that experience, which is so profound, how did you go on with your life knowing what was on the other side? Was it hard for you to move on, or did you go with gusto and be like, this is what I'm going to do, I have all these plans and now I'm going to do them, or?
No, I went through a pretty heavy depression at first because my mother was really ill at the time. I had a premature baby that weighed 3 pounds and I was like, what do I do with this little thing? And she cried all the time, like nonstop crying, for the whole time that she should have been,
in utero.
Yeah. So, it was just every day I questioned, it was I was just like, why'd I choose this?
Right.
This sucks. This is not fun. Like, what am I doing here? I got to get out of here, And so that the thought in my mind is like, why am I here? This isn't good. This is the wrong choice, So for a long time I was like, I made the wrong choice. But, over time I got to a point with that depression where I'm analyzing what was going on, in my experience and remembering that gusto of like, oh yes, I got to get back in there. Trying to go, okay, well, this might not feel good now, but there's a reason I chose that or I wouldn't have chosen it.
Right.
So trying to come to terms with my own choice that I had made and living the consequences of that choice, I had to take it day by day. Like, if I could go outside and see the sun and just feel that warmth of the sun and imagine that as that love, that I was feeling. Yeah. And that really helped.
Yeah.
Just get past that deep longing and hurt because, it's like when you're born, you are living this life and you don't really remember it. But then to not be here and then all of a sudden you're back here again. Yeah. That's all you remember. That's all you want. Like it's the greatest thing ever, that feeling. So trying to live this life versus that feeling, it was a challenge.
Yeah. When did you ever get back to a place where it's in the norm and go back and not have that in the back of your mind? Or is it because it's been many years?
I like my life now, and I'm happy with my choice. And there are things that went on in my life that, are the greatest things. I mean, some things have been really terrible and, nothing can be perfect, but, you just I'm so grateful to be here.
Mm-hmm. And that is wonderful. When I heard your story first, the thing that really struck a chord with me is you said that Earth is not about coming here as a school.
Right.
And that changed, your story changed what I thought about death. It was that profound to me because my point of view is that, we are energetic beings here on this planet to go to school and to learn these lessons, and from in this lifetime, because we have several lifetimes where we choose to do these certain roles and play these characters and that stuff. But you said it's not like that.
No, it's really about, it's not so much of a school, if you look at the situation, like if God is like, here, okay, you go to school, but you don't know the curriculum. It's like this inside joke where he's like, right? Yeah. Okay, that isn't at all how it is. We're very involved in our own planning. We choose to be here. And the reason that we come here, that I understand, is that it's for the experience. So you're coming to experience what it's like with these limitations of being in this human and in this human body. Your soul is bigger than this room. Your soul is everything in the world. And then you take, it's a part of your soul is in your human form. And, whatever you're born with, you have these limitations. Some people have disabilities and those are their limitations. Right. So their soul is learning how to be this human within these limitations for the experience. Okay. Because why not? Let's try it out. Yeah. Wonder what this would be like.
Oh. Yeah. So it's not like, okay, these are the lessons we got to learn. No. It's just the experience. That's
and through every experience you learn. Right. But the goal, the ultimate is not to learn. The ultimate is for the experience.
And to be. Wow.
Just to experience it.
Yeah. When you have that point of view, do you think that people take life too seriously?
Yeah. Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's beautiful because so many people do. And it's like when I went through, I didn't go through an experience like you, but having a bad, disease, although it was acute in nature, but it really did. It put a perspective on living and what's important and what is not. And you look around and you're kind of like on the outside looking in and you're like, this stuff is not so important.
Yeah.
This trivial stuff. And people just like freak out over it.
So many people take everything literal and just so serious. I always want to be like, are you having fun?
Right. So how has this
fun?
Right. So how did this experience make you more grateful and having fun in your life?
Yeah, very, very much so. I mean, I'm so grateful to just be alive and be healthy and, be able to do the fun things that I like to do. And, people are always taking their job seriously, or their job is their life, and not taking that time out for themselves or having a hobby that makes them happy, something that they find joy in, it just seems like that stuff's not important. Don't, let it go. Yeah. Do what you feel called to do, or what it is that really makes you happy inside. Yeah. That's what's important, because those are the feelings that are going to mean something. Right. When you leave, you're not going to think about your job. Yeah. Nobody, you're not going to think about your bills. I mean, well, you can think about your bills because you need to live, but you know what I mean? Yeah. You're not going to think about those day-to-day things like, I have to go to the grocery store. When you leave, you're not going to be like, gosh, remember that time I should have gone to the grocery store and, I shouldn't have bought that lettuce. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you're not going to think about those things. You're going to think about who you went to the store with and what the funny things that you said in the produce department or whatever it is. You know, those are the moments that make life.
Yeah. And it's worth living. And one of the questions, and I had you review some of the questions that I was going to ask you during this, because this is it's kind of a sensitive topic, but I wanted to know, we've had such an increase in our suicide rate, especially in our country. Is your message for people that are contemplating ending their lives by their own choice? Would you say, like, hold up, wait, that's not what it's all about. You know, it's about this, it's about the relationships and, you know, the experience of all of that. So what would you tell somebody that has had those thoughts?
What would I tell somebody? Well, I can't really say exactly what I would tell them, but I think that when someone decides to take their own life, in a lot of ways, it's not necessarily about just them. In a lot of ways, it's how that act impacts the people who were in their lives. What is the experience that they're learning from that? So those people who have been involved with someone who takes their own life, they're going to then reevaluate things in their life and take their life a little bit more, you know, like, my life is so grand, I need to really live it. Right. You know, I really need to embrace those moments and even those sad moments, embracing those, because there's so many different feelings and experiences and things that you can learn from those experiences, you know, as you're going through them, that change your perspective and change who you are from that point forward. You know, I think what I might say to someone is that this is just the smallest moment. You know, there's so many more moments. And you get caught up in emotion. I mean, I know how that is. Just to not let that emotion consume you, because there is something better. And if that person ultimately makes that choice, yes, it is better than here. I mean, this is hard, you know, it's hard, but that doesn't mean that it's the answer.
And it doesn't mean that it's not good either.
Right. Yeah. And I think if they did make that choice, that they would be disappointed in that choice that they made, you know. There was a lot of choices that I'd made that I was very disappointed in, you know. So going through that process of seeing those choices that I made that were disappointing, going, why did I make those choices, or how could I have done that? You know, you look at it from a perspective of being outside of yourself. And I think when somebody is in a suicidal, that's what they can't see, right? Is that perspective outside of themselves. So just trying to have them understand that there's more perspective than what that moment in time that they're going through.
Wow. So I think I think your message gives people hope, you know?
That's good then.
Yeah. So what would you like for your message to help people to take your message and what to get out of it?
Just to live every moment, you know, enjoy yourself, laugh, love, have fun, because that's what it's, you know, here. That's why you're here.
Yeah. It's funny how much our emotions play a role in us being here. And, I mean, they control everything that we do, because we react on emotions instead of just being.
Right.
So I think that your story also does that, where you're just enjoying it and just being and not just experiencing that. That's wonderful. How did this experience help you become an energy healer, crystal healer, and animal communicator?
Well, I can definitely say that, I mean, I've been a psychic person my whole life,
Mm-hmm.
but there was a definite change
Mm-hmm.
afterward,
Mm-hmm.
that it was a lot more amplified. And I feel that this is why I'm here,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
to help people see what they can't see.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's what I bring to my business, I think. And if that's, reading for your cat,
Mm-hmm.
then that's what it is.
Yeah. So how can people contact you?
They can contact me on my website, which
Mhm.
is mikibrittenham.com.
Okay. And we'll have the links so that we get the exact spelling of that for everybody. Miki, thank you so much for coming here and sharing your story with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. Okay, until next time. Thanks.